Hey YouTube, you are once again tuned into the Pharaoh's Vessel, and today I'm going to bring you a deck profile for my Harpies. So without further ado, I'm going to jump straight into it. But remember guys, if you go down to the bottom of the page, you can click like and subscribe for all new content that I do and other bits and bobs. There'll be plenty more to come in the future. Like for instance, I'm sat here now, I've got two of my boxes out. So I'll be going through two of my decks at the moment. But for the moment, this one is my Harpies. So without further ado, let's move on to the monsters. Right then guys, so with the monsters now, we've got one XYZ monster, and all the rest are just your normal effects and standard cards. So starting off with, we have one copy of Samorph, Bird of Divinity. The card cannot be special summoned. If you tribute summon the card, the tribute must be wind. While this card is face up on the field, both players take 1,000 life points of damage during each player's end phase. Decrease the damage each player takes when this happens by 500 points for each spell and trap that the players control. So, could work well. I have two copies of Harpie Lady 1. She's got the effect of, while the card is on the field, it's treated as a Harpie Lady. As long as the card remains on the field, you increase the attack of all wind monsters by 300. You run two copies of Harpie Lady 2, who's the same again, treated as Harpie Lady. You negate the effects of all flip effect monsters that this monster destroys by battle. And of course, two copies of Harpie Lady 3. And she's same again, Harpie Lady. And your opponent's monster that battles with this card cannot declare an attack for your opponent's next 2 turns. So that could come in handy. I like to run 3 copies of Harpie Lady Sisters. The card cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned by the effect of Elegant Egotist. I also run 1 copy of Harpie Harpist. I might up this to a few of these cards, so I might actually up them to 2. She's great because she's got the same again, becomes Harpie Lady while on the field or in the graveyard. You can only use these effects of Harpie Harpist once per turn. When this card is normal summoned, you can target 1 winged beast type monster you control other than this card, and 1 face-up monster your opponent controls returned to the hand. Or, during the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it's sent to this turn, you can have 1 level 4 winged beast type monster with 1500 or less attack from a deck to your hand. So she's not a bad little monster. I've got 1 copy of the Channeler. Once again, like I said, I might bump it up to 2. You can discard 1 Harpie card, special summon 1 Harpie monster from your deck in defense position. Sorry, face up defense position. I've got a bit tongue tied there. Except Harpie Channeler, you can only use the effect of Harpie Channeler once per turn. While you control a dragon type monster, this card's level becomes 7. This card's name becomes Harpie Lady while it is on the field or in the graveyard. I have 1 copy of Harpie Queen, which again might bump up to 2, who states that you can discard this card to the graveyard and add 1 Harpie Hunting Crown from your deck to your hand. The card's name becomes Harpie Lady while it's on the field or in the graveyard. I have 1 copy of Harpie's Pet Dragon. This card gains 300 attack and defense for each Harpie Lady on the field. I have 1 Pet Baby Dragon, which has got quite a mouthful on it. It says that this card accumulates effects according to the number of monsters on your side of the field that include Harpie in its name, other than Harpie, Pet Baby Dragon, and Harpie's brother. At least 1. While this card is face up on the field, your opponent cannot select monsters on your side of the field as attack targets if they include Harpie in their name, other than Harpie, Pet Baby Dragon, and Harpie's brother. At least 2. Double the original attack and defense of this card. At least 3. Once per turn, you can destroy one card on your opponent's side of the field. So, nice little monster there. So, continuing on after that slight interruption, where my phone decided it didn't want to record no more. Yep, we got one copy of Harpie Lady, 2 copies of Harpie Girl, just to bulk it out slightly. I like to run 2 copies of Harpie Brother, and I've got some, well, just random add-ons, like I've got a Skull Red Bird, the Phantom Griffin. I run 2 copies of Crane, 1 copy of Swift Birdman Joe, and a copy of the Ghost Bird of Bewitchment, which has the effect that if this card gains the effect based on the main monster zone it's in, if it's in the leftmost, which is obviously the furthest one this side, it gains 1,000 attack and defense. If it's in the rightmost, which would be over here, it can make 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. If it's in the smack bang center, the opponent cannot target the card for card effects, also cannot be destroyed by opponent's card effects. And of course, if it's in one of the other 2 zones, which are basically middle left and middle right, monsters in the column cannot activate their effects. So it's not too bad a little card in fairness to the Ghost Bird of Bewitchment. So yep, that sums it up for the monsters. Moving on, next we'll have the spells. So for your spell cards, guys, I like to run, stereotypical in almost all my decks, 1 copy of Scapegoat. I have 2 copies of Harpie's Hunting Ground. Obviously, because you've got 3 copies of Harpie Lady Sisters, it's always better to run 3 copies of Elegant Egotist. I have 1 copy of Triangle Ecstasy Spark, 1 copy of Harpie Lady Phoenix Formation. There is 1 Cyber Shield. Most of these are one-offs, guys, to be honest with you. 1 Black Pendant, 1 Silent Doom. I have 1 MST. I like to run 1 copy of Reload, 1 copy of Rush Recklessly. I have 1 copy of Enemy Controller. I have 1 Dispel, 1 Psychic Blade, and 1 Nightmare Steel Cage, just to give you something. So yep, there are your spells, guys. So if you decide to build one of these decks or whatever, that's I'm not saying that's exactly what you need, but it does help. Moving on, next we'll have the traps. So for your traps, guys, I like to run 1 Harpie's Featherstorm. I have 3 copies of the Hysteric Party, 2 copies of Icarus Attack. There's 1 Magic Jammer, 1 7 Tools of the Bandit. I like to have 2 copies of Golden Apples. For those who don't know what it does, basically it's a trap card that when it's activated becomes a Malice token. It's a Fiend type monster with a Dark Attribute, level 1 attack defense above question marks. They're equal to the amount of life points you gained by the effect, because obviously when you take battle damage and control no monsters, you activate this card instead of like, you know, taking the hit or whatever, and instead of losing life points you gain them, because that's what that card allows it to do. Moving on anyway, I got one trap hole and one magic jammer. Oh, tell a lie, I got two magic jammers. I do run one extra deck card in here, guys, at the moment. Only the one. So I like to keep it to Harpies if I can. And the one card I've got is the Harpie's Pet Phantasmal Dragon. It requires 3 level 4 wind monsters to bring it in. The card's effects can only be applied resolved while it has XYZ material. This card can attack your opponent directly. Your opponent cannot target any Harpie monsters with effects or for attacks. During each of the end phases, you detach one XYZ material from this card. So basically, you can hit twice and directly, and keep your Harpies on the field for 2 turns, whatever. I might bump that up to 2 in time, I think. So obviously you scatter them. When one runs out of its XYZ materials, you put the second one in, etc, etc. But yeah, that is a sum up, brief look at my Harpie deck, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Sorry for the interruption in the middle, and then obviously I lost my chain of thought, which has caused me to like stutter even worse than what I normally would. But yeah, if you can just go down below, click on like and subscribe, and we'll hopefully get something sorted soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.